Hey, it's Jennifer Cottes, and this is the Success on Purpose podcast. I'm a business coach. I help emerging entrepreneurial women design and grow a simple business to support a life they'll love. Each episode will help you break through the mental clutter and get super clear about how to earn an income in a way that simplifies your life and gets rid of all the messy stuff that isn't serving you anymore. Tune in to learn to run your business in a way that works for you, on purpose, and with purpose. So let's get started with today's episode. Take two. Okay, we are recording. 100% we are recording, right? It's ticking. Okay, guys, this is take two of the Success on Purpose podcast episode with Dr. Al Lundeen. So this episode is number 016. And so if you're looking for this episode, this will be on... if you're looking for this episode, it'll be on my website, jennifercottes.com/podcast/016. And all the show notes and all the information will be there for you. So, so my apologies to Dr. Al, but I forgot to push record the first time. So I'm going to go through his bio all over again. And here we go. So Dr. Al, thank you for being here. And yes, and thanks for doing this. Again, we were only 5 minutes in maybe, so it's not too bad. But
it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. Okay, so he's a chiropractor turned life coach, and he is a health and human performance expert who has also helped pro athletes, Olympic gold medalists, World Series winners, IronMan winners, IronMan finishers. There's nothing wrong with that. Ironmans are pretty tough. And thousands of other amazing people change their lives and achieve unthinkable goals. But he's also a Tony Robbins trained life coach and a Brendon Burchard trained performance coach. And he started coaching in his chiropractic business about 10 years ago. And then he said 7 years ago, his coaching practice started to take off, and he made this amazing transition from chiropractic to life coaching. So let's start with that. I did have an opening question that maybe I'll ask you at the end. Yes. if we've got time. But I really want to hear about your transition from chiropractic, and I think my audience would really like that too, is going from chiropractic to life coaching.
Sure.
And the quote that you'll see on his website if you go there, dr.al.net. You can go visit him. But in his bio, it says, honestly, I didn't know what to do. I was scared to go all in with life coaching. And I can imagine that. I can imagine what that decision would have been like for you. So you started telling me a little bit about it before. And, can you maybe back up and for now that we're recording to kind of tell that story a little bit again, because it's a really great story. Thanks. Thank you.
So about 10 years ago, I started doing coaching within the clinic. And my clinic, the chiropractic clinic, was a lot of athletes. And so with that, it was a little bit different. It was more kind of long-term change, more spinal postural change. Right. And so I would be with them for, a couple months and, a few times a week. Quite often it was just maybe the two of us. And so, from there, I learned a lot about each patient, and I just learned about how they thought, problems, issues, their behaviors, their emotions, and all that. And like I said, I was doing the life coaching, or all the coaching that I was doing. There's multiple types of coaching I was doing on the side. Right. And so it got to a point where all of a sudden the coaching was overtaking the chiropractic. Yeah. And, I'm looking at the numbers, and I just kind of started kind of freaking out, and so most of my friends at the time were chiropractors, and they're like, what are you doing? You're a chiropractor. And I start thinking, what's going on with a chiropractor? And there was really no, like I was saying before, there was no mentors. We didn't have podcasts. We didn't have YouTube, mm-hmm. or I don't know, we may have had YouTube back then, but I wasn't watching it. Yeah. I wasn't watching. There's no one to learn how to do that from. Yeah. And so, it just kind of, mm-hmm. like I said, I was terrified. Yeah. And so I kind of pulled the reins back a little bit with the coaching, and then, eventually started getting back into it. And then the time just came where I was like, you know what? Now I'm ready. Mm-hmm. I've grown as a coach. I've grown as a person. Certain things have happened to me, good and bad. Right. That kind of molded me into this position where it's like, okay, now I'm ready. Yeah. And part of it too was I think I I may have needed a break from chiropractic. You know, not like I was in a lot of pain or anything. I could adjust fine, but you know, you just get to a point where it's like, okay, maybe something different for a little bit.
Right.
And I was like, this is it. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And that's what happened.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I love that. Like what, like, I know that when it came to the point of having to make the decision about leaving a 9-to-5 and relaunching my business coaching business.
Right.
It was like, I felt like my head was going to explode. Like, did you have that moment of decision, or was it more of like a gradual transition for you?
For me, it was more gradual.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay.
And so,
yeah,
you know, it's kind of funny because there's a lot of similarities with life coaching and chiropractic.
Yeah.
You know, because especially early on when I was practicing, most people didn't know what chiropractic was.
Right.
Like they didn't know why you would go see a chiropractor.
Right.
And, you know, with life coaching, it's kind of a newer thing. And so it's like, why do you want a life coach? Like, why would I need a life coach? And so it's a lot of kind of the same, I don't know if you call it struggles, but it's almost the same type of plan. You know, you have to do a lot of education and, you know, just getting out there in different ways.
Right. Yeah. So on that, like, what were some of your struggles in terms of building your business? And like, so you had to build a chiropractic business and then you had to build a life coaching business. Like, were they the same? Like, what were the kind of struggles along the way?
I think like some of the big struggles were almost like changing my identity.
Yeah. That
could have been probably the biggest one, because I've got all these people who, you know, they know me as Dr. Al. Right. You know, like that was just how I'm known. And so all of a sudden it's like, hey, what's he doing? You know, he's doing this, like, you know, because not everyone knew I was doing any type of coaching or anything on the side.
Right.
You know, or I was doing any coaching because I really wasn't publicizing it, I guess. Right. And so that was probably the biggest change, was just getting that shift from, you know, the chiropractor, sports chiropractic to, you know, a human performance, like all around human performance expert.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And then calling in clients, did you kind of start off with many of them coming through your chiropractic, or what was your platform for getting your name out there and bringing people in?
You know, it was a lot of just social media. Yeah. You're saying like the transition to coaching? Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
It was like mainly social media.
Yeah.
And so like I had to start new pages and just invite people to the page and just hope that they come. And then, you know, just start, you know, just putting out information and, you know, that was really about it. And a couple people, you know, people just started like asking me like, what are you doing? And there was interest and people were just signing up. So thank God for Instagram. Like, it's amazing. Instagram has just been incredible. Yeah. It's been an incredible platform for this. Yeah. And awesome. It's fun. It's just different.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. One of the things I find really interesting about you being a male life coach is that it seems to me that you coach a lot of women. Is that was that on purpose? Success on purpose? Was that on purpose, or was that just kind of, it came to you for whatever reason, like, and you just went that direction?
Yeah, you know, that was not on purpose. It was, and the funny thing happened with chiropractic, and I think with chiropractic, I was treating a lot of women. Yeah. And so oftentimes when someone's injured and they need help or they, you know, they want whatever, a woman will usually just be like, okay, let's go, let's do this. I want to get better. Right. A guy will be like, oh, I'm okay. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, I don't need this. Yeah. You know, and then it's like, okay, well, I'll see you in worse shape in 5 months or whatever, you know? And so with that, like, women are just, they tend to be a little bit more open. Right. For the most part. And they're willing to listen, to maybe apply some of the things that you talk about, and they're willing to do things. Right. And so it just kind of went from there. So my chiropractic base was, you know, a lot of women. And now I would say with the life coaching, a lot of it may have to do with, I went through a divorce. Like, it was like pretty bad divorce. And this was a few years ago. And it's kind of funny because, that was probably possibly one of the toughest times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
what happened was I was able to have more empathy, and,
Right.
I was able to relate with women. Because oftentimes I'll have a woman who is just a shell of their self.
Yeah.
They're either separated, they've gone through the divorce, or maybe a couple years or whatever,
Right.
but they're just a shell of that person.
Right.
And, I'm able to, kind of build them up and get them back to where they once were, like prior marriage or whatever. And that's the cool thing about life coaching is I always get to see that huge metamorphosis from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different than chiropractic because, like I was mentioning before, like chiropractic's cool because on a physical level, you can see someone go from one end to all of a sudden they're in the pros or, whatever.
Right.
But this is a life change.
Right.
This is a total life change, and it's just, it's awesome to watch.
Yeah. That's actually one of the drivers for my relaunch is because, I went through my divorce too, and I found myself really off track and becoming that shell of the person I was, right? And I think if I was in my marriage longer, I would have become even more of the shell. And thank goodness I had some like self-preservation and some just some fight in me, right? Like to keep that even, and it felt like it was a fight. And then coming out of it, like it's like, okay, how do I rebuild that? Like how do I rebuild my sense of self and reconnect with what I want, and then shed all the crap, right? That's kind of like blocking me from being my fuller self, right? So
right.
yeah.
And that was one thing that changed with me was, before I would see, different people going through a divorce and, not knowing anything about the relationship, but just watching, I would say, oh, that's a great thing, like, oh, that's probably a good thing that they're getting divorced and whatever.
Yeah.
And not realizing just how painful it is.
Yeah.
And so now, like I said, like I think it just helps me help other people where I've been at that level. Yeah. And even though it, on paper, it's like, oh man, you were so lucky to get out of this, in the way you did, but it's not like that.
No, it's not. And I think that for me, I didn't see it at all. It took me a few months after the separation to even understand what was happening inside that marriage, right?
Right.
Yeah. So to help, to have a life coach to just be there and kind of explain, this is what's happened to your brain, right? Or this is what, and this is what you need to, like, what you not need to do. I don't like that language exactly, but like, this is what you can do to rebuild and why it's important. And, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then how can you move forward from here? Yeah.
And then create like the most amazing life that you want to create, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And see the opportunity in that. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of flipping.
Yeah.
Flipping things in your head and how you perceive, and that leads to emotion and behavior.
Right. One of the things, like I know in my own situation it was never about like blame or, don't get me wrong, there was some anger, right? You get stuck in your feelings, right?
Right.
But it was instantly for me, the first question was, whoa, how did I get here? And how can I never get there again? Right? Like kind of crawling out. So that's amazing. But, it's such a, so, and I think this is one of the things that resonated with me, as far as, kind of watching you and listening to some of your podcasts. I joined, a while back. Was it a self-love challenge you did?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, so self-love is like seems to be such a huge part of what you do.
Right.
How do you,
it's one of the cornerstones, because you're not gonna, if you've heard this before, if you don't know how to love yourself, like you're never going to be able to love another person, a situation. You have to make that change, and you have to, like what you said before, you have to break those barriers in your mind to get to that point where you can be like, you know what? Yeah. Gosh, I am awesome. Yeah. Like, I totally forgot.
Yeah.
I'm so cool, and to be able to like say that and put that energy out into the world.
Yeah.
And so, there's a few things that you have to do for that too.
Yeah.
But it's a life changer.
Yeah. What kind of things? Like what are some of the integration exercises?
I would say
or
like some of the big things is don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the biggest things that I learned is honor. Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And you cannot beat yourself up over mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things like you have to look at it, own it, it happened.
Right.
And whatever, I have to move on from this.
Yeah.
I have to learn from it. But you can't just ignore it, because if you ignore different things, it pushes back.
Right.
And so if it's pushing back, if you're pushing it away and just ignoring it, it's going to push back on you even stronger.
Right.
And so that's why you just have to see the size, see the weight of this thing, and then just release.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people struggle with that.
Yeah.
People struggle with it because they'll just focus on it, and they will focus on it. And when you focus on it, it's just going to stay there. It's just going to stay alive.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between like the focusing on it and feeling it through, right? Like, and that's the owning it part. And that's the,
right.
Yeah. And the releasing part of it.
That's the tough part.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so what you have to do is you have to release it and then recast. It's like fishing, recast, get that negative emotion, get that, or I'm sorry, positive, get that positive emotion, not the negative, positive feelings, whatever. Start thinking about goals. It's the same thing as, what you're concentrating on, goals, something that's positive person, positive relationship.
Yeah. Boundaries have been really important. Like, do you have recommendations around that? Or
as far as like relational boundaries?
Well, yeah, like what I find in kind of the self-love arena, and what I've had like found for myself, is my ability to set boundaries and then to have it come from a place of self-love and of maybe protecting my integrity or my self-care, I want to say, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, yeah.
So,
because people are going to treat you as you allow them to treat you.
Yeah.
It's just like you're like dealing with a little kid. Like they're just going to keep pushing and push it, see what they can get away with.
Yeah.
It's no different for adults, especially if you've been in that, 9 to 5 atmosphere. People are all working together. They're in their cubicles, and it's like a little playground. The stuff that I hear, it's like, oh my God, it's like little kids. Yeah. And so the kid is just going to push and push and push. What can I get away with? What can I do to this person? Right. And so you have to look at your relationships and be like, okay, this person is doing this to me. Yeah. How did I let that happen? Yeah. Because ultimately it's you that let that person get away with that.
Right.
And they're just learning from their experience in dealing with you. Yeah. And you can turn that around.
Right.
Okay, well, why am I treating this person like this?
Yeah.
Good or bad?
Right. Yeah.
Oftentimes bad.
Yeah.
But, like, how did I learn to allow myself to do this to this person?
Yeah. Or accept the behavior on you, right? Like it's kind of, and some things are more habitual, especially when it comes around like to family and people that are in your life a lot, as opposed to, I don't know, just whatever, people on the street or at the coffee shop or whatever, right? Like you're kind of a lot more conscious about boundaries with people that are further away from you than people that are in your life, or it's harder to set boundaries with people that are in your life,
Yeah, especially after they've been there for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because they've learned different patterns, like I said, like they know what they can get away with. Yeah. Yeah. So set those boundaries right away.
Right. But part of that is knowing that you deserve, like certain things that you it's recognizing that you deserve to be able to set those boundaries. And then, I mean, I have a mantra now, right? To say, nope, that's not for me. right? And to be comfortable with
Right.
setting the boundaries. And the fear of that is like, oh, but what am I missing out on, right? It's like the fear of missing out if I
Yes.
don't like engage, or if I don't even just say no to an event, or answering the phone, or it's I mean it's definitely a journey to even recognize where you're not setting the boundaries. Like it's just
Right.
like awareness is the first step, right?
Self-awareness,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you always
Yeah.
have to have that baseline. You have to know where you're at.
Right.
And see that with that, there's a lot of maybe self-worth too.
Right.
With that, you have to know, you have to
Yeah.
define your own self-worth.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
no is
Yeah.
a positive word if you
Yeah.
use it right.
Yeah. And intentions, right? And
Right.
having a life vision, and yeah. And
Right.
yeah. So awesome. Um, the other thing, and maybe you can, maybe I'm sure, like you probably talk to your clients a lot about this, but is creativity, and how kind of using your creative, flexing your creative muscles, if you will, is
Yes.
another way to I want to say climb out and get unstuck. If that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because creativity is huge, and you wouldn't normally think about that. I've had, people who have, I've got one story where this guy was dealing with a high level type person who was donating a lot of money to different charities and whatnot, and he was just kind of getting bored with it. He was just kind of lost the flair for it, and so they're talking to him, and they're like, "Well, what do you do?" And he was like, "Well, they come up to me, they make these presentations, and I give the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and that's where I put my money."
Yeah.
And so what they did was they had him actually come up with the presentations.
Oh.
And so just the power of doing a PowerPoint,
Right.
like lit him up.
Yeah.
He started tearing it up, and it was like, for me, that would be awful.
Yeah.
But for him,
Yeah.
for him, he loved it.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And, that's the cool thing with, like the life coaching and the stuff that I'm doing now, because I've always thought that I'm not creative. Like that's just been a negative thing for me. And
Right.
I'm a horrible writer. I can't think of anything to write and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's been fun, like finding some creativity in like doing podcasts,
Yeah.
doing different things that are a little bit different and creative in my work. And that's allowed me a different type of happiness, and for me to go to like a different level, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Like it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And who would have thought?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been actually listening to some of your podcasts, and so many great interviews on there. It's great. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's totally fun. And actually, speaking of your podcast, I think is this where you say, what is your like your opening kind of intro to your podcast about?
You are
something
loved,
around-
you're welcome.
Yeah, or you're able to give love, receive love, total fulfillment, kind of.
You're welcome here.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that people, like the big thing is to feel safe.
Right.
Like I want them to feel, I've always wanted that. Like whether I've led groups or whatever, and there's a new person that comes in, I want to provide a safe environment.
Yeah.
And, I want them to know that I care about them.
Right.
And, you'll find love in this
Right.
circle, in this
Right.
place. So
But-
it's just kind of with the introduction, like I'm hoping
Right.
that they get that and that they feel
Yeah.
welcome and they have some worth with that.
And like, where did this even come from for you? Because you're a guy, so I feel like this is very feminine energy kind of stuff. If I can ask you this, because
Don't tell my friends.
yeah, like it's a lot of, yeah, like the self love, the receiving love, I can see why like women are coming into your practice, right? Like, or into your life coaching as clients, right? So.
Right.
But what's the driver for you? Like, where did this kind of emerge and come from?
I think it's always been there. A lot of it is probably coming from like going through the divorce. As soon as I separated, I started going back to church.
Oh, right.
And I think that's been a big positive impact on my life. And, it's one of those things where like before I think I would almost be too embarrassed to say something like that.
Yeah.
And now after all the stuff I've been through, I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I don't think people
Yeah.
think of me anymore.
Yeah.
My pride has is gone.
I think
You
that's
know?
like honestly like the best gift from divorce that you can get. Like honestly,
Right. Right.
it's like I don't care what people think anymore. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't matter.
so, you know, that's just
Yeah.
who I am deep down. And,
Right.
you know, my goal, my mission has always been to, you know, to better myself
Yeah.
in different avenues and take what I've learned and like leverage that to other people.
Yeah.
And hopefully when they look at when they met me compared to like a
Yeah.
year from then, that they're in a better place.
Yeah.
They're a better person
Yeah.
in, you know, whatever avenue.
Um so as far as your like some of your not that you know you should be talking about your private coaching client sessions or whatever, but what are some of the common themes you see in with your clients that come in? Like maybe the reasons for coming to you in the first place. Like
I would say, you know, I do have a lot of, you know, like I said, people going through divorce. And like I said, for that, it's like someone who's just kind of a shell of what they were before and they're ready to come out. But I also have a lot of kind of go-getters who are maybe they just feel stuck at a certain level and they're ready to push to that next level.
yeah.
And so yeah, just a totally different mindset at that point, you
Right.
know, and they just maybe need a couple things, couple tweaks to get them to that level. And so a lot of it is actually, you know, there's a few stay-at-home moms,
Hmm.
which, you know, I always say like they're the CEO of their household.
Yeah.
And it's people who are trying to go up that ladder, that corporate ladder, and just trying to push. And I do have some entrepreneurs as well who
Yeah.
are kind of, you know, like trying to make that shift
Right.
into part-time, whatever, side hustle and get that into their
Yeah.
full-time work.
Right.
So it's kind of all over the place, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it keeps it fresh.
Do money blocks ever come up for you in your life coaching?
Uh, Quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, it depends because, you know, the coaching sessions can be anywhere from, you know, 150 to $300
Right.
depending on whatever.
Or I mean like even like in terms of their success or getting to the next level or in their relationships or things that kind of like, you know, not so much entering the coaching relationship, but like just in life. Or
Oh, gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. You know, I would say maybe not so much. I mean, money is always a big, everyone wants money,
Right.
you know, and you know, it just kind of depends on what their mindset is for money.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've always thought um, money is more of like a tool because money, I've never thought of money as mine, which is
Hmm.
probably very different than what a lot of people think.
Right.
Like I kind of think of it as loan,
Yeah.
you know, like it's just kind of loaned to me
Right.
and it can be put
Yeah.
in my face and it
Yeah.
can be taken in a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I think of it in terms of how can I help people with this money?
Right.
You know, it's more like a tool, I
Right.
guess. Money is more of like a tool of, okay, well, I've got $5,000 in my bank account.
Right.
What can I do to help someone with that?
Right.
Oh, I've got $10,000 in my bank account.
Yeah.
How can I leverage that to help more people?
Yeah.
I've got 100,000. You know, it's just
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you're just at
To serve. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah. And to give
exactly.
back. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I guess you know, just talking about money, that's kind of how
Yeah.
I view it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I think that's amazing. Like there's so much around energy and money and what's the book I read? The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but it's
No.
I mean in my marriage that was one of our big arguments was about money and money's never been
Yeah.
like you. I've never felt like I owned money in a sense, right? So even if I had debt, like say my student debt coming out of like my BA like years ago, I had to switch to the mindset of this is not my debt. And I think I had a business coach tell me once to, in order to pay my debt, find something else to pay your debt. Like as in, I'm not paying my debt, but maybe I needed to create another project that would earn income to pay that debt, right? Or something on that line. So I've always had that mentality. And once I could shift on that, then suddenly like a couple years later, the debt was gone, right? Like it's amazing. Like, and when you own it and when it's yours, it just kind of stays with you.
It's just, yeah.
It's there. And then even with, like just kind of the earning it, like, the focus isn't there for me to have a lot more money, but it's more about like it being good money, right? Like there's no way I want to have money that's not mine, like that I didn't earn or that I didn't like, maybe got in a funny way or funky way or something. Like I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. So it just it's like it's the integrity around it, Yeah.
And sometimes you can focus on the process to make money. Like you're not so focused on, oh, I want to make this because then I get a car and then I can do this and do that. Yeah. But if you focus on that process, that's going to, increase like the fun level. It's going to increase, just working with different people, relational type stuff.
Yeah.
And then the byproduct of that is going to be that money.
Yeah.
And then, okay, well, what do I do with that money?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can give it to this charity, to this church.
Yeah.
Whatever. I can build this for people.
Yeah. Or it allows you to spend more time with your family or even for more self-care. And, if you like,
exactly.
You change yourself, you change your life, you change the world. Right. So it's even if it's with that kind of intention, so, and I find that a lot of my, audience, like they're in a, and I'm a single mom, so I attract single moms. Right. And, single mom entrepreneurs. Right. So, when you're in that position and you're transitioning that way, you have a family to take care of. Maybe you have extra lawyer bills. Maybe it's just a transition, right? You have to kind of readjust your life. And the drive to need to make more money right away is kind of big. And so, and to be able to step away from that and go back to the creation process or the alignment process and say, well, how do you want to live your life now? And, kind of coming from it from that point of view, as opposed to like the quick thing. And I find that it's just, it'll come to you. It flows from there, So, yeah.
Right.
So,
and you don't want to be a slave to money. That is, that's the worst.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that like some of your, like, when they're trying to go to the next level, it's not so much about, it might be about career, but it probably is more about maybe their leadership or their sense of self. Yeah.
Fulfillment. And there is some, achievement, obviously. Oftentimes they'll find their purpose.
Yeah.
Just being present in situations.
Right.
That's a big thing that I am constantly working on with my son.
Right.
And you're probably at the same, doing the same thing, because you think about work all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get distracted and be like, okay, I got this email, this text, this blah, blah, blah. Just sit on your phone while your kid's like, dad,
Yeah.
And so, what I do is there's like certain cues that I'll have for different people, like little triggers. And so for him, when I look into his eyes, I try to think present.
Yeah.
Be present.
Right.
Be present, and it's work. It's hard to do it, but that's my intention.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm doing a better job at it.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely similar. It's like throwing the phone away almost and losing it, like to stay away.
Right.
And then now that I'm in a mode of more performance, like in terms of like I have more of a DMO, I have more of a schedule than maybe I did a few months ago. I can gray out full days and just not look at my email and not look at so I'm, and to make sure that I'm fully present for her and fill her cup. And so. Yeah.
And that's the thing is like email. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so, I've had a big shift with email. So now it's like, I don't sit there and I won't look at it all the time. Like, I got an email, it's like sometimes, which is probably bad. I'll go a couple days and I won't even check it.
Yeah.
and maybe it's not the best business wise, but
Right.
man, it makes a huge difference when you're not
Yeah.
just constantly checking email.
Right.
And it's a big thing with just being present.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
So it's funny you say that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. So I'm going to ask you the opening question now. And then I actually have a closing question. So,
Okay.
just to accommodate my flub up of not hitting record, I saw, it was crazy. I saw the red button. I'm like, oh, it's recording. I'm like, no, it's not. You have to push the red button. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. So the title of my podcast is called Success on Purpose. And
Right.
so when you think of success on purpose, what does it mean to you?
Okay. So first of all, I love that title. I think it's pretty cool. And there's a couple things I thought of right away. And the first one, success on purpose, I was just thinking of, like being on purpose, like doing things on purpose. And, what I said earlier was, like when you're a little kid, maybe you do something to your sister and she'll say, oh, you did that on purpose. Like what was your focus? What are you focused on? What was your intention? Do you have clarity? Are you constantly thinking about what you want? Because when that happens, when things around you, when things come around you and they can help you, you immediately are drawn to it. Like you can spot it. It's like you can spot it a mile away.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, what's your purpose? Like, what is your purpose? Do you know your purpose in life? And a lot of people don't. And that's totally fine. Because I think that you get purpose with experience. And so once you start experiencing different things, okay, eventually you're gonna find your purpose. And one thing that I have people do or think about is if they are having a hard time thinking about what their purpose is, think of how can you help others? Like, how can you serve others? And you keep thinking about that every day, pretty soon your purpose is just gonna show up.
Right. Awesome. And then I have a final closing question.
Okay.
And your life coach, so I think this is a great question for you. But so my audience is emerging entrepreneurial women, okay? Single moms,
Okay.
moms, like maybe women that are in transition. So to me, emerging is like, it's exactly kind of what we've been talking about. There's like a transition in life and you decide this is what I want to do. I want to, follow my passion, reorganize my business so that it supports the life that I want. Those kind of transitions, right? So what would you like people listening to this podcast? What would you offer as one piece of advice to emerging entrepreneurial women?
One piece of advice.
Yeah, one piece of advice to someone to an entrepreneurial woman that is emerging into their entrepreneurial life.
Okay. I'll give you something that you may not think of. And this was actually one of my podcast guests, Heather Poduska, had mentioned this one time, and it just it blew me away. Like I was like, oh my God, yeah, of course. And I thought it was brilliant. And so it was kind of a question like this, but I would say the number one thing would be to generate enthusiasm.
Cool.
Let that sink in.
Cool.
Enthusiasm. And so nothing persuades people, gets them excited like enthusiasm. And so, it can build turn a flame into a wildfire in your life and different avenues of your life. And, it's energy and it's going to build momentum.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, nothing kills that fire like boredom.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I would say in what you're doing, you have to generate enthusiasm.
Awesome.
And your life will change.
Nice. I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so much. So thank you for being here. I want to make sure that people
thank you.
You're welcome. I want to make sure people can find you and get a hold of you. So your website is is it dash, right? That's
dash, I guess.
Dash al.
It's hard to say.
.net.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Dash
That's the best I could get.
Yeah. But I'll make sure that's in the show notes so that's available for you. But they can also find you on Instagram.
Facebook, Instagram are kind of my two platforms.
Okay.
So with those, go ahead.
No, I'll make sure that those links are in the show notes for anybody listening.
Perfect.
And if you are listening to this and you want to go straight to my website, it's jennifercottes.com/podcast/016. And then everything will be there for Dr. Al Lundeen.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you've got a community that you're promoting right now called Rise Up Nation.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So, and that would be at -al.net. Again, it'll be in the show notes.
It'll be in the notes.
Right. RU Nation. So go and check that out because he's got this amazing group where there's a ton of guest speakers, other coaches,
Facebook Lives.
Yes. Speaking on amazing topics.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thanks so much for sharing this, and thanks for putting up with me on that first round. I really appreciate you're amazing.
Right. No, that was awesome.
Okay. Well,
I just hope the second take was as good as the first.
Oh, I think it was better. It's always better.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you like this episode, please share it with someone you care about and throw in a comment in iTunes and let us know what you liked about it. And if you want more, go to jennifercottes.com and grab the Entrepreneurial Women's Guide, 3 Steps to Ease in Earning, and you will also get notifications on new content, free workshops, and program details that we have planned for you. Until the next time.